Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane will be challenging her suspension. She says President Cyril Ramaphosa is conflicted as she was planning on investigating recently emerged complaints against him. Yesterday, Mkhwebane lost her bid to interdict an impeachment inquiry into her fitness to hold office. She is asked and also approached the African Commission on Human and People's Rights to seek compensation of about 50 million rand for a violation of her rights. For more on this, we speak to legal researcher Nkanyiso Ngqulunga. Nkanyiso, thank you so much for your time, and of course, thank you for joining us. Your thoughts on the Public Protector's ambitions seeking this assistance from the African Commission?
Good morning, and thanks for having me. Busisiwe Mkhwebane's attempts to save her job, it's one of the reasons why she's went to the African Commission of Human Rights and People. I mean, to me, it's yet another way to demonstrate that she will do anything to save the job, because part of the application that I read of the 144 pages, she highlights largely legal issues that are currently ongoing in South Africa, and I think largely those issues have not yet been resolved, or there's no finality into those issues. She has cited a number of judgments in the application to the Commission, because remember that the Commission is under the African Charter, and it deals solely with the human rights. So there's a Commission and there's an African Court. So there's no way that all those institutions that are quasi-judiciary could assume some sort of jurisdiction to entertain issues that are internal conflicts relating to something that are not even rights. And again, the Commission is something like an inquisitorial process that really cannot find itself embroiled in other countries' affairs. Yes, it is permitted to deal with issues of human rights concerning any human rights abuses like torture, unlawful detention under the international law and the African Charter. But it cannot find itself interfering with the affairs of another country that really have got nothing to do with the human rights.
No, the President in his statement, of course, when he was announcing the suspension, mentioned that, for reasons to ensure that Mkhwebane actually gets a fair hearing, in fact, were the words used, I think affording her the time and opportunity to make her submissions before the inquiry itself, don't at all denote any sort of rights violation. So one is curious on what leg the Public Protector was hoping to stand on when it comes to approaching the African Commission on the claim that her rights have in fact been violated.
I mean, in our South African Constitution, everyone is always accorded with an opportunity to present their facts whenever there's something against them. So the suspension in itself is not yet final, such that there is a parliamentary inquiry which is a process that is going to be an impeachment inquiry. She will be afforded with an opportunity to state her side of the story. She has not yet been found maybe guilty by the inquiry, such that that could in fact mean that her job is done. I mean, the inquiry could find something, that she stays on the job, So the suspension is precautionary, and the suspension is what the Constitution provides, of which this is not a violation of the rights, but rather, a constitutional safeguard to ensure that whenever a person is accused of anything and while in office, they are able to say they must step aside while the investigations and inquiries ongoing. They are called upon to give their side of their story, and then ultimately the decision is going to come. The decision might that they lose their job, or the decision, it could be that they remain in their job.
She not only has questioned whether or not the parliamentary process will give her a fair hearing, but judging from the statement that she released, she's also questioned whether or not the South African courts are able to give her any sort of fair hearing. She's questioned their independence. We know that many of her legal bids have in fact failed in a number of these instances. Could that perhaps fall within the purview of the African Commission, this question around the independence of both the judiciary and in this instance of Parliament to come to an impartial decision when it comes to her fitness?
The issues around judicial independence, I think that really it's something I would say it's sort of a reach, because there's no evidence that the judiciary in its own decisions has not really considered all the factors that had been presented before making the judgments against Mkhwebane. So it's an issue of the lack of trust in the judiciary, of which I think it's something that everyone who loses a case, it's always going to be a case. But really, it's not something that is factual, but rather a perception of what they think of the judiciary. But again, the issue with the African Commission is that it cannot assume jurisdictions on internal conflicts like this one, because this conflict, she says in her own papers that, one, she disagrees that a judge could chair an inquiry that is looking into an impeachment process. She, in fact, says that I disagree with all what the South African courts are saying. She disagrees with the suspension. She disagrees with any other thing that has been happening to her. And then she says that is a violation of her rights in terms of the African Charter. And I think it's Article 7.1 of the African Charter. But if you look closely to what's been happening, these are just issues that the courts have decided on based on the law of the country as it provides. So therefore, it's an issue that has got nothing to do here with the universal human rights as provided by the international law or the African Charter, but rather an internal issue or that she's facing in South Africa, and I think at a political level as an office of the public protector. Therefore, it cannot be that an institution like the African Commission is being dragged into another country's affairs, such as the state affairs of another country. I think that would be that is going to be in itself a violation of the international law and that of the African Charter, because the jurisdiction is that the African Commission, yes, can hear matters around the human rights violations, and we know what human rights violations are. People who are tortured, people who are detained without a due process, and all those people who are being killed, and all those kinds of things. So therefore, it means that it's undermining our sovereignty as the country if it were to assume jurisdiction in such a case. Because even its own decision, the African Commission, own decision are not enforceable, because everything else is dependent on the member states in the African Union. So what it does, it's just only going to take a decision, and that decision, it's a recommendation that is not enforceable, meaning that the member states can only decide as to how they wish to act on those. And by deciding that, it's only the special rapporteurs that can be able to lobby that particular member state on the issue that is relating to the violation of human rights to change. But there's really nothing that is binding about its own decision. It's something that really, to me, it doesn't resolve the issue at hand here.
Well, it would appear, Nkanyiso, that substantively what the public protector is requesting, it doesn't really have much of a leg to hand on, but we do have a second leg of her request, that being the 50 million rand in compensation. Now, does the African Commission ordinarily give, punitive or compensatory awards of that nature?
Yes, part of the jurisdiction of the African Commission, it says that once the victims have been found, so by victims, the definition of victims, I'm referring to those who have been violated, their rights have been violated in any other way. So the Commission, yes, can order compensation, but I don't think the applicants, in this case, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, can direct or state that she wants 50 million from the Commission. It does not work like that. It's only the Commission that is able to identify what is just and equitable in terms of the extent of the rights that would have been violated to those people. Therefore, the Commission orders that this is how much money they think is due to those people if there is a violation of human rights. So there is also no justification for this type of a quantum payment. Where is it coming from? So to me, I also found that to be very strange, because I don't think it is in line with what the Commission prescribes.
All right, Nkanyiso, we'll leave it there. That was legal researcher Nkanyiso Ngqulunga joining us there to discuss the public protector's efforts or her seeking of assistance from the African Commission when it comes to her suspension that was, of course, announced earlier this week. Now,